on to our next keynote speaker for the day, Bridget Kimball, Chief Architect at Intuit Consumer Group. She'll be sharing Intuit's transformation journey from product to platform organization. Welcome, Bridget, over to you.
Thank you, Preeti. I'm going to use I think the way we start every meeting. Can everyone hear me? We live in the Zoom world now. Thank you very much for including me in this event and asking me to come and speak. I really am inspired by all of the effort that Intuit puts into promoting diversity and equity and really making this a place that women feel like we can do the best work of our lives. So, you know, a little bit about myself before we get started on the topic. I am the chief architect of our consumer group based in San Diego, California. I also lead the platform engineering team within that organization that covers the core services, security, operations, developer productivity, and quality. I've been at Intuit for about 2.5 years now. I definitely have had a diverse career. I've worked in a various set of industries and fields. You know, previous to this, I was working in cable television. I'm familiar with security, cybersecurity. I've done large companies, startups. The early days, dating myself, of digital video compression. So, you know, as Sanket talk about Netflix and the disruption, at some small level, I was involved with that when we were trying to figure out if you could actually take video and stream it over something. And even back to my earliest part of my career, I was working on satellites and putting them on rockets. And so, you know, the comment about disrupting yourself really spoke to me, because it's really important to chase and go after the things that you find interesting and want to do, because there's no reason that you shouldn't be able to do it. And a good company and good environment will only encourage you to do better. Kind of on a personal level, I've been married for a very long time. I have 2 children, twins, a boy and a girl, who are now in college, both pursuing STEM fields. My husband is also an engineer. And, you know, one of the things that I, you know, will say that's been great about that is, you know, for my daughter, you know, she never thought that she couldn't do whatever she wanted because she saw her mother doing all these things. But it's also remembering it sets a tone for the men in our lives. And so my son doesn't think anything of a woman wanting to pursue whatever it is that she's interested in. So, you know, I'm lucky with that. You know, from the perspective of managing career and family, I've been fortunate to have people in my sphere of work who have always been supportive. It's not easy, but when you have a work environment that is supportive, you can do it. And Intuit definitely provides that. And the Intuit Again program is the first I've ever seen in all my career, and it's amazing, giving you an opportunity to take a break and then come back. So, you know, I'll kind of switch over now to what I'll be talking about, but I'm going to be giving you an overview of our transformation from product to platform. And Sanket talked about it briefly, and Preeti mentioned it a little bit in her opening. So I'm going to go one level down and talk a little bit about some of the challenges and the reasoning that we're on this journey. We're not done. I don't think you know, you're never done. But this is give you a sense of where we are today. Next slide, please. You know, this is a, you know, laundry list of, you know, some of our main products, you know, TurboTax for, you know, personal income tax, QuickBooks for small businesses, Mint for personal finance management. We just completed the acquisition of Credit Karma, who revolutionized the ability to get your credit score and match you with good financial offers for yourselves. And earlier this year, we also acquired a company, TradeGecko, that we're using in some of our commerce building, you know, commerce building programs. And you know, all these products on their own are great, and they solve they solve specific problems for our customers very well. But they've been fairly standalone. So if you're a QuickBooks customer, to go and use TurboTax, we don't actually always know. I can't automatically transfer all my data from QuickBooks to TurboTax. And, you know, so they were a bit siloed. And so, you know, as we've been looking on how we revolutionize ourselves and disrupt, we really kind of came down to the premise that we can't revolutionize the experiences for our customers, create delightful experiences that make their days easier because we're doing so much for them that they don't even have to think about. We can't do that unless we take a view that these products all sit on top of a platform which provides the core infrastructure and data and AI to enable many transitions between all the products in a very seamless manner. Next slide, please. You know, as Sanket mentioned earlier, we have a history of self-disruption and reimagination. Intuit started as a you know, company that in DOS, way back years, and it was to help you know, there was a Quicken to help you balance your checkbook. And then, you know, we moved into the era of Windows. We started our tax business and, you know, grew very well. The 1990s were definitely, you know, we were starting to really show that we were moving into becoming a major player. And then the web hit and we went from, oh, now our products have to work on the internet, you know, not just desktop anymore. While desktop is a very, you know, significant part of our business still, people expected to be able to do more and more and more on the web. And so we made that switch in the 2000s, early 2000s. And then in the previous decade, we realized mobile is how many people want to interact with the internet. People don't want to sit at their computer. How do we create products that allow them to do these complex financial transactions from their phone? And it's the era of cloud. No more data centers that we manage and worry about resources. We've moved everything to run in the cloud. We're on AWS and we run our tax seasons completely on the cloud. And, you know, in many ways, we're one of AWS's toughest customers for some of our peak demands when we're in the middle of our seasons. But now really it's the era of artificial intelligence. We now, with all these products that we have and customers who may be users of many of those products, it's really how we leverage the data that we have about you, use intelligence to predict what we can do for you, unify and unlock the data that we have so that we can really create smarter products that make it easier for you to do your work. At the most simple level, it's, oh, we have your information from last year's taxes. We can pre-populate a lot of this year for you, and you can just check to make sure what's different. If you are a self-employed person and you're using our QuickBooks Self-Employed and you product, when you collect all your information, we can then route that over to when you do your taxes. So you don't have to import the data, we import it for you. And then from a budgeting perspective, I can look at your transactions in Mint and make suggestions on how you could save money. If you want to save money, let me help you and let me offer you some tips on that. So really it's the era of artificial intelligence is what is going to be the successful partner for us. And you can't do that unless we have a platform where we can leverage all the data and services that we have. Next slide, please. And so really our strategy declared in the last couple of years is that we are going to be an AI-driven expert platform. We have made a very strategic shift from being product-centric to being platform-centric. We think about what we build from the perspective of a platform that serves all of our customer segments. and all of our partners. You know, while we are might be building something for a particular product, we build it in a way that it can be reused and leveraged in other places. And so, you know, the goal of powering prosperity and enabling you to have more money, do less work to take care of your financial life, and that you have complete confidence in what advice we may be providing you. It's extremely important that we are correct in what we provide you as options and recommend, and we take that very seriously. Next slide, please. So that's great. Everybody can get behind that and say, this is all really good, but how do you do that? How do you go from being a product company to a platform company? You don't just sort of declare it and say we're a platform company and it happens. It's actually pretty tough. It really requires you to commit to a culture shift in your people, your processes that you use, and your technology. It's not just technology. From a people perspective, you have to build that platform mindset across all of your organizations, your you know, your product development teams, the engineers, but all of your product management, your design, your program management, senior executives really evangelize how a platform will allow us to invest in core capabilities that will make us move faster ultimately and deliver more benefit to our customers. Everyone has to make that shift, because when you're working in a platform way, you're working differently. From a process perspective, you also have to be very mindful of the fact that you're thinking about investing in platform capabilities at the same time as you're planning what kinds of product features and you want to build. So you have to think about reserving bandwidth for building strategic capabilities that are built for durability and extensibility. And from the perspective of how we reward teams who build that kind of software, reward long-term thinking behavior over short-term behavior. You know, we're really now within Intuit celebrating when we build something that's reusable and leverageable across many different domains. Those are things that we embrace and want to elevate, because that's the kind of behavior that we want to see throughout all of our team members. And then from the technology perspective, when you think about what you're building, how do you know if you're building something that's a platform capability? How do you decide if it's, you know, how do you decide what platform means? And, you know, we've kind of landed on these three things. One, it's simple to adopt. We have, you know, we have all the documentation, we have all the tooling to allow you to onboard quickly and use it and leverage it. Kind of like if you go in the open source community, there are some projects that are much more active than others, and a lot of it is the way that they've built it out, so it's really easy for you to use it. Developing and deploying quickly. So we really believe in investing in what we call paved roads, where certain infrastructure capabilities just come for free. So your how you build and deploy and test. We have, you know, automated pipelines that do that for you. So as an engineer building for features for a product in a team, you don't have to think about, oh, what do I have to do to build and deploy? It's there, and you use that infrastructure, and you can focus on solving the important business problems that we're after. And we also you have to think about enabling collaboration and contribution. Just like in open source, you can, you know, contribute to a project, and then, you know, the owner of the project will either, you know, reject or accept your PR. We really have invested in within our tech culture in making sure that all of the code that we write and the services that we build are what we call inner source ready. They're set up so that it's easy for someone to contribute, and it's encouraged so that we can add capabilities rather than building something new. So if a service is 80% of what you need, don't go build a new one because it doesn't have the 20%. We want to make sure that it's easy for you to add the 20% that you need, and then everyone can take advantage of that. And so those are all things that you really have to work together, and it's not always easy. And sometimes in business, you have to make very short-term decisions, but you need to, in order to be a platform, we have to really embrace all three in order to make that transition. Next slide, please. So I'm going to touch a little bit on our technology approach for how we've approached looking at how we build an AI-driven expert platform. Next slide, please. So what we've done within the larger engineering community is really our platform architecture is represented in something we call the city map. And it really reflects a decomposition of all the capabilities that we have. And it clarifies how we want to categorize functionality. And it then provides a map for people that are trying to build the products, to see that we have reusable components that they can leverage and put together. And we steward those capabilities so that we do decomposition that makes sense, and it's set up so that things are self-contained. We don't unnecessarily bind things together to make so that it becomes difficult to use. And so ideally, in the ideal state, you would leverage the services and capabilities that are in this city map view of all of our software, because we map all of our software into this structure. And then you could really very quickly spin up an app for what you need, because all of the core capabilities are already there, and you just need to build some of the core business logic on top of it. So it really helps us align the way we work, and it reminds us to think about reuse first rather than building from scratch. And so all of our work is delivered by this platform. Next page, please. So, what have we seen with the platform benefits? And so it's really multifaceted. We've seen customer benefits where we have smarter products, and we can leverage data that is tax data and other financial data across the ecosystem. For example, we can, by looking at information that we know about you from maybe if you're a small business customer and you have your own, you're a tax customer, we're able to determine like, oh, you could be, these loan offers or credit cards could be very useful for you based off of your profile. And we can help you kind of pre-fill the application so you don't actually have to do very much work. We also get the benefit of cohesion because we're building off of the same platform. All of our products will look the same, common look and feel. One of the things that if you use the Google suite of products, whether you love the interfaces or not, they're the same. When you're in the Google properties, and that's what we want to be, is that our products are a suite of common interfaces that make it very easy to navigate. And the other benefit that we get with this is quality. I've always said that if you build something 10 times, you will have 10 times as many bugs, because each group will make a different set in whatever their implementation is. And so when we focus on reusing capabilities and adding to them, we're limiting how much error we're adding into the system. And so we're actually hardening our capabilities rather than creating, lower quality, quick fixes. This all then leads to business benefits. When you have products that are delightful, your customers use them, and your business will grow. Really if you, we really believe that the customer is number one, and if we meet what the customer needs, the business will follow. And from the perspective of employee benefits, when you have all these tools available to you, teams can move fast. And when teams can move fast, that gives them time to innovate. And you can really do some very creative things because a lot of the a lot of the basic work is already done for you, and we can really focus on what is it that's going to make the most impact to our customer. Next slide, please. And so then, the question is, how do you start? And there's a phrase I like to use. It's called, it's impossible, it's really impossible to boil the ocean. So these goals that we have are big goals, and they're very ambitious. And, we are fully committed to making it all happen, and we have been making it happen. But, realistically, we are a business, and we have to balance continuing to deliver for our customers today while we transform ourselves to be a platform for the future. And so you really have to look at this as it's a multi-pronged incremental approach. So if we're building something fundamentally new, think about it as a platform from the beginning. And so we have new things that we build where we do that. I mean, I would say a lot of that innovation is going on in our data science and ML space because we're building new for us over the last few years. We can be smarter about thinking about how do you build to be extensible and scalable and durable from the beginning. We also have many examples of where we've backed into platform capability from the product. And the example I will give for that is you have a feature in a product that's great, but it's only in that product and it was built to be in that product. But can you extract that so that other products can take advantage of it? And so one example I have of that is in our tax product, we had a pretty good help systems. So if you're going through doing your taxes, you need help, there were buttons you could click, you could, text with someone, you could get access to help articles. And as we expanded to our, TurboTax Live business, where you're connected with a CPA to help you do your taxes, we offered all those ways to get you the help that you need so that you can complete your taxes with confidence. Well, what some of the architects on my team did is said, we could use this in QuickBooks. Help is help. It's generic. It doesn't have to be tied to TurboTax. And so we invested in extracting it and creating it as a generic capability. So now it's being used across the company, and it's a reusable capability that can scale. And if you make a change or add a feature, every product automatically benefits from it. And that's really the beauty of having a platform view of how you build your software. And then the third one, I think I've talked about this a lot, is really adopt. Really, engineers love to build. And so sometimes it gets really exciting to just start coding and go. But step back and think about what's out there already. What can I leverage? What can I contribute to make a capability better, and then use that in my work? And so really it's a mindset of you have to be thinking about all three of these all the time, depending on what you're doing at the moment. And so it happens in spurts, and it's not like you open the door and say, today we're a platform. It's no, we'll be a platform. We have to open many doors. And each time we do one of these things, we're getting closer to being that platform. Next slide. I think that's the end of my presentation. So I hope that this was useful for you to think about platform and how you become a platform company. Some of the content that I went through today was from a chief architect offsite we had in October with our chief architect for the company, Alex Balaj, who's really focus of the 2 days was how do we think platform first while we build the products of today, but still build the capabilities that will accelerate us in the future. So I'm happy to take any questions if we have some time for that.
Thank you, Bridget. Yes, we do have some time for the question. And thank you for this insightful journey on the transformation, like how we can use reusable components and not right from the scratch, and how we leverage help system from the TurboTax to other products. We have a few questions from the audience. I would like to take your permission to ask you this. How is Intuit helping tech communities through its transforming learning?
As tech communities through transformation learning. So I assume that's talking about external tech communities, or
The open
just want to
source.
make sure. Open source. Oh, yes, yes. Okay. So we're actually very active in the open source community. We have a number of webinars that we've put on that talk about our commitment to open source, and we have a number of people, engineers that are very active in the open source community. We are really trying to accelerate our efforts in contributing to open source and not just being consumers, but really contributing. So it's been nice to see on some projects that I've been involved with, we have contributed work that we've done to open source because we believe in the power of how open source can multiply. At the last Grace Hopper a couple of months ago in the US, Intuit actually led a day-long session on open source and ran sort of an open source hackathon and had a workshop where we had a number of our engineering women talk about how to actually do open source. How can you become a contributor? How can you start your own project? And really created that energy around this is an important part of tech and we need to be in the middle of it. So Intuit is definitely, it's definitely a priority for us going forward.
Thank you, Bridget. We also have a question on how does one identify the right transformation plan before embarking on something of this magnitude? What were some of the key learnings that you could share with us?
That's a great question, and that's actually an extremely hard question, because I think one of the things as you move from product to platform, any big bold plan that you're going to declare and commit to, when you start, you probably really don't know what it's going to take to get to the end. You may know what you want your target to be, but you can't lay it all out and say in 3 years I'll be there and I'm going to do this first, then this, then this, then this. It's really, you have to be extremely flexible. What I would say is when you're thinking about transformation and you want to take that first step, be willing to take a risk and be willing to fail. So it's okay to take and say, I'm going to try this with the hardest problem, and I will learn the most if I fail from it. The way that we balance, building new features versus thinking about how do we invest in the old is very, we reserve a certain amount of bandwidth in our planning so that we are making sure that we're keeping our current software refreshed and we're keeping our stacks current and all of that. But we do also reserve time for experimentation, and we're going to try something new and see what happens. And so I'm really a believer in quickly go and try some experiments and be okay if 9 out of 10 of them fail, because you learned something out of those 9 that failed. And so the next 10 that you pick, you'll do better and you'll be able to move a lot faster. So I also think you have to be extremely comfortable with ambiguity, and be willing to pivot when you learn that something that, your approach isn't going to work. So it's not something that I could say to a program manager, here's our transformation that we want to do, plan it out. We can certainly plan out the big things that we think are the big boulders we have to move, but in between all the sand that's in between all those spaces, it's I think being flexible, being willing to experiment and fail, and always collaborating with the teams around you. No one can do this alone.
Thank you, Bridget. I mean, I think risk, willing to fail, and collaborate. Yeah, absolutely true. And we do have a few more questions. Uh, where is Intuit today in AI journey? Is AI integrated to the platform that Intuit is coming with?
Yes, I would say we're not in the beginnings of our AI journey. I think we've matured past the crawl, there's a crawl, walk, run. I think we're probably in the walk space. We have invested in, I would say the way we started our AI journey was we invested in building data science teams to develop models that we're going to use in our products. And that was all really great work. I think what we saw was that we didn't maybe spend enough time thinking about how that all integrates into the products. So the last couple years have been about building those paved roads to make it easy to take a model and have your products take advantage of it. I would say that we're getting ready to. We just launched our TurboTax online product for the U.S. Last week, went live, and I don't know how much we had last year, but this year we're going to have over 90 models in production related to TurboTax. I think maybe we had half as many last year, though I don't know the exact number. And so we have really become laser focused on finding where we can develop models that will help us identify when our customers need help and offer them suggestions. And so I think we are in the walk phase of building and deploying and seeing the value. And then we're pretty close to the run going forward, but we're really, we've made great leaps in our maturity in the last 3 to 4 years. I think many other companies have. I think many companies just thought you hire a bunch of data scientists and then it's done. And it's like, it's really not. You do hire data scientists, but you need a lot more than that in order to be able to actually leverage AI in your products.
Bridget, just a follow-up question on that. In this amazing journey of this AI, where the technology keeps changing, right? How to keep the balance between developing new features versus technology refresh?
Yeah, I think like I said, touched on a little bit earlier. You can't always build new, because if you're still relying on the older technology, you have to keep it current. And so you have to very deliberately invest in keeping that current technology fresh enough that it still meets your needs. And so when you go into looking how you're going to allocate your teams and the work that you do throughout the year, you need to take care of what you already have and dedicate teams to work on that. And people should be, and from a mobility perspective, people should be able to move around to do anything, but we need to attach the same value to the tech refresh as we do the new features. Like I've used the example that it's kind of like if you have a car in your driveway, and every month someone comes and says, I want to paint it blue, and then I want to paint it yellow, and then I want to add a new radio. And that's great. Those are all really good things. But if there's nobody changing the oil or putting gas in the car, it won't matter because you haven't kept the infrastructure running. And so we have to view our products like that. You have to keep everything healthy. It's not just the new shiny feature.
Another last question, Bridget, that I have. How is Intuit helping its employees on its transformation journey?
Okay, so we definitely are doing a lot of sharing of best practices with each other, and we've actually reorganized to move from a more business unit product focused engineering team to teams that build a combination of products and capabilities. So the platform doesn't come from one team, the platform comes from everyone. And it's just whoever has built it and has the best implementation of it is the team that stewards it going forward. So while we still have business units from the perspective of the products, our engineering organizations are becoming more and more like a matrix where you know, 1 month you might be working on something that's very specific to TurboTax, and the next month you're working on something that's actually a core capability for the platform that's used throughout the company. So we're in the, I would say we're not done yet, but we've definitely made a lot of change toward organizing our teams around the city map, really, that I showed you earlier, rather than just the business units. And by doing that, it encourages the kinds of behaviors that I mentioned earlier so that you can actually invest in platform.